up and welcome to another bike review from Appleyard Motorcycles in Keighley. If you're in this neck of the woods, or even if you're not in this neck of the woods, get yourself up to Appleyard's fantastic range of stock, both new and used, and plenty of demonstrators and major marques like Suzuki and Husqvarna and Royal Enfield, of course. Motor Marinis, CF Motos, Vosges, Benellis, you name it, they've got it here, and for the most part they've got a demonstrator for you to take out. And I, at long last, am taking out today this here Royal Enfield Shotgun 650. Now, as many of you may well know, I'm a Super Meteor 650 owner, so this is my first opportunity to see how this bike compares with its sibling. So let's hop aboard, see what all the fuss is about, and I'll give you an honest opinion. Right, here she is then, the Royal Enfield Shotgun 650. Much spoken about over the last few months and possibly years, eagerly awaited, and here she is in blue, and there's a green one, and there's a white and grey one, and there's a grey one. I'd have the grey one, but the grey one is sold already. Lucky chap or chapess. So yeah, Royal Enfield Shotgun 650. So let's take her out for a spin, and we'll see just exactly what she's got to offer. Okie doke. Right, and the first thing I can tell is this bike has a very different seating and relative positioning to the Super Meteor. Now, the Super Meteor, of course, has somewhat foot-forward controls. They're about there, whereas these are there. Not a massive difference, but still a difference. Seats firmer, and the angle at which your gluteus maximi are presented even to the seat, hey, is somewhat different. It is for me. Right. So, very familiar layout here, just like the Super Meteor. Same switch gear, and same instrument display there, with the main unit on the left and the tripper navigation on the right hand side. There she goes. So the display that you have, which is tabbed through using this info button here, basically around the outside, obviously you have your speedometer, analog speedometer, and a small LCD display in the middle, which gives you fuel, gear, odometer and trip, and if we cycle through we should get a clock as well. So we've got trip A, trip B, Odo, so there's all of 6 miles on this bike. Oh, and your clocks, sorry, your clock is there, but if you wanted to alter that you'd need to use that info button there. So that's that. On the left you got your standard headlight and pass switch, indicator, horn, and on the right your kill switch and starter, and hazard switch. Right, we'll do the details on the walk around, but let's mosey on out. Right then, so first impressions seated upon this here Royal Enfield Shotgun 650, and I can't help but compare it with the Super Meteor, of course. It's begging to be compared with the Super Meteor. So what's the first and most obvious difference once you're on the bike? Is its physical size. Now, I know it's the same frame, but sat on this bike and riding it, it feels a much more compact bike than the Super Meteor. Now the Super Meteor has a longer wheelbase and a bigger rake than this, and a bigger tank, and I think the combination of those and the different riding position make riding this bike much more akin to riding something like the Royal Enfield Interceptor. Of course, the engine, very, very familiar, the same engine that's to be found in the Super Meteor, the Continental GT and the Interceptor. This tried and trusted and now proven 650cc, parallel twin, air and oil cooled, and a fairly bulletproof engine, it has to be said. A massively over-engineered engine. So much tighter, snappier turning on the bends than the Super Meteor. The Super Meteor has a much lazier turning. This is a lot more taut, shall we say. That's a good word. Taut. Hey! But it's lovely and comfortable. I would want bar raisers, I can tell that straight away. I need to be about here, I think, for me, because the old arthritic shoulders are just telling me that these bars need a bit of tweaking, but that may well not be the case for many others. Yeah, so it's a very, very interesting bike to jump upon for somebody that's owned a Super Meteor for about 7 or 8 months now, because of course this bike only came about when Royal Enfield put an Interceptor 650 male and the Super Meteor 650 female in a room together alone for the night, and then came back the next morning and lo and behold, there was a Shotgun 650. Hey, because that's the impression that I get from this bike. Yeah, it seems to me to fall precisely between those two stools. Not that I'd want to call the Interceptor or the Super Meteor stools. That'd be a bit rude, wouldn't it? Hey! No, but you know what I mean. That's the space which it seems to occupy. Now, whether that is intentional or just a matter of my sort of deductive reasoning, I'm not entirely sure. But that's how it occurs to me, and as somebody that's that has owned an Interceptor and does own a Super Meteor, that's where this bike is. But if you are not a fan of the foot forward riding position, but you are a fan of cruiser styling and of Royal Enfields and of this wonderful 650 parallel twin engine, then this could be just the ticket for you. They come in at £6.5 grand. Now, as with many Royal Enfields, the price point is dependent upon the colourway. But the entry level one is like an industrial grey, and that's my favourite colour by a country mile. And then in the middle you've got this blue one and a green one, a sort of military come mushy peas green colour. I think it's called drill green if I'm not mistaken. It's quite nice. And then the sort of top colourway is a sort of white and grey And I think there's a little bit of red thrown in there as well, and I believe that's called stencil white, that one. But the difference between, you know, the three models is only sort of like 200 or 300 quid. So if you reckon about the £6.5 mark, that's what they come in at. That's a lot of bike for the money. Now I could do what I usually do here and say, let's see what the fueling's like when we get in traffic, but I know full well I'm so familiar with this engine from having had two other bikes with the 650 parallel twin and having ridden the Continental GT. I know full well the fueling is excellent in traffic, so there are going to be no issues, no surprises, no snatchiness. Everything will be nice and linear where you expect it to be. Yes, this would be a very, very competent commuter, and a stylish one as well, I think it's fair to say. And a lovely, lovely rumble there from the OEM twin exhausts, which on this model are blacked out. Which begs the question, are you a chrome fan? Are you a stainless steel fan? Or are you a blacked out, Cerakoted, powder coated, whatever man or woman? And initially I was always a big fan of the shiny cases on the Royal Enfields. Spent many a pleasant hour polishing away. I'm not so fond of it now, so the blacked out ones definitely appeal to me. I wish little Norman had blacked out engine cases and exhausts. Hey, but I couldn't have had him in that lovely halcyon grey colour were that to be the case. I'd have had to go for that horrible drab grey colour. Sorry to offend anybody that's got that, including my friend Mr. Silverfox Travels. I'm sorry, I know the cub is that colour. But you benefit from the blacked out casings and exhausts. You don't have to spend half your summer polishing. So that's one distinct advantage this bike has, certainly over the earlier Interceptor. Somewhat over the Super Meteor. Well, the Super Meteor's not blacked out, certainly the exhaust isn't. The engine cases are greyed out, which means you don't have to polish them, but they're not blacked out. And of course the very latest incarnations of the Interceptor are also with blacked out engines and exhausts, and very smart they look too. So let's see what turn of speed we've got on this engine. We know what to expect, 47 horsepower. It's plenty. Now this bike's only got 6 miles on the clock, and although it's a demonstrator, I am not going to ride it beyond its recommended running in procedure. I don't think that's right or proper. And to do so would not tell me anything that I don't already know about the performance of this engine. It's an engine that is capable of over 100 miles per hour, and it is perfectly responsive enough for railworld riding. Like I say, it isn't going to peel your eyeballs out of your sockets. By the same token, it isn't going to leave you desperately begging for more power for that overtake. Yeah, lovely handling on the bends. And as I say, noticeably tighter on the turning than the Super Meteor. Much more akin in terms of handling to the Interceptor. Suspension pretty good. Not quite as harsh at the rear as the Super Meteor, it has to be said. Shower suspension up front, non-adjustable, but there is preload adjustment on the back. And certainly the suspension at the front, the shower suspension, is sublime. That's a very premium feel about it indeed. No fancy electronics whatsoever to be had upon this bike. What you get is really all that you need, and that is ABS. No traction control, no IMU, no quick shifter, none of those bells and whistles. And on a bike like this, that suits me just fine, because this bike is about returning to the basics, the fundamentals of motorcycling. The sort that used to rule the days back in the sort of 50s and 60s and 70s to a certain extent. Where you've got to use your motorcycling husbandry skills to get the most out of your bike. This bike sounds glorious. Those exhausts giving off a really characterful rumble betwixt these here dry stone walls. Yeah, what's wrong with your side of the road, pal? Yeah, of course this bike actually broke cover at EICMA and possibly also at the NEC, although I wouldn't swear to that, but quite some years ago, certainly before the Super Meteor came out. So it's been hanging about for quite a while, waiting for the grand reveal from Royal Enfield. Now, having said only a couple of videos ago that I didn't think the Classic 350 were going to break cover anytime soon, and that if you were hanging around waiting for one, you might be disappointed. But I did say I'd be happy to be proved wrong. And if old Moto Bob's out to go by, and he seems pretty well connected, doesn't he? He seems to think it's about to reveal itself. I think he's managed to source a couple of spy shots of a putative Royal Enfield Classic 650 being ridden around somewhere, minimally disguised. And also a scrambler variant. So, are they about to reveal themselves in due course? A Royal Enfield Classic 650 and the Royal Enfield Scrambler 650? That'd be interesting, wouldn't it? That would be very interesting indeed, particularly if both of those bikes were unveiled or announced at the same time, because that's sort of what Triumph did, didn't it, with the 400 and the Scrambler 400. Yeah, so I'll be very interested to see that. So yeah, I might have made a little bit of a premature projection. Oh, we don't want any premature projection, do we? In relation to the Royal Enfield Classic 650. Not rocking up for some considerable time as I saw it. Looks like I might be 100% wrong, but I've never been happier to be 100% wrong if that is the case, because I want to get my sweaty mitts on that bike. But of course it will have to represent something significantly different. It will have to represent a departure in design from the other bikes sporting this engine. So really I don't think that it can afford to be something that for example might invite people to say, well, it's just an Interceptor with a bit of this, or it's just a Continental GT with a bit of that, or it's just a Shotgun with another bit of the other. Can't afford to be in that territory really, and I don't think for one moment that it will be. But it will be interesting to see just exactly how that bike presents itself. Of course the engine's going to be the same, come what may. And of course it might not be called the Classic 650, it might be called the Bullet 650. And there'll be a lot of logic to that as well. But let's see, today's about the Shotgun 650. And these Royal Enfield bikes, they don't have make you feel good when you take them out for a spin. They're just effortless. And the weight, I mean the difference in weight between this and the Super Meteor is negligible. Might only be a kilogram or two. And that's quite heavy. The Super Meteor of course 241 kilograms. And I think this is something like 239, I may be wrong, might be the same. Well, do the numbers on the old walk around. But the very obvious difference once you're upon the bike is the difference in physical size. And therefore handling. So yeah, if you're interested in the Shotgun 650, get yourself over to Appleyard's and you'll be able to ride this bike, this blue one here. This is the demo bike, but they have the other colours available as well for you to have a look at. And like I say, I like that there grey one. Now, would I be tempted to swap my Super Meteor for one of these? I don't think so. There's no way on earth I'd get a straight swap, that's for sure, anywhere. But notwithstanding that, although I've spoken about the difference in appearance, the difference in size, the difference in feel, it's still basically the same bike, if you see what I mean. Different shaped tank, a bit less capacity in the tank, but all in all this is 85–90% Super Meteor to my mind. And so that you know, that wouldn't be a compelling enough argument for me to swap between one or the other. But of course that may well not apply to you at all. I suppose you would call it a cruiser. It's difficult to find a pigeonhole for this bike. I mean, I suppose it is a modern classic, and I suppose it is a cruiser of sorts, and it's not really a roadster, I suppose. It's a difficult one really to categorise. Not that that's important, not every bike has to have a label of course, does it? And that may well be the ultimate driver of its success, that it's sort of unique. I can't think of another bike from another manufacturer that really occupies the same space as this. Let me know if you think differently. But the fit and finish again on here is every bit as good as the Super Meteor, and the Super Meteor indeed represented a step change in the build quality of the Royal Enfield parallel twins, and this is no exception. The paintwork's excellent, the fit and finish around the bracketry and the tinware and odds and sods is all top draw. Got a lovely solid hewn from rock feel about it. Right, the Royal Enfield Shotgun 650. Let's do a quick walk around. Up front we've got 43mm Showa upside down forks for suspension with 120mm of travel. We have one, a single 320mm disc with a twin pot bi-brake caliper. And the engine, of course, that tried and trusted 648cc, I believe. Single overhead cam parallel twin, putting out 46.7 brake horsepower and 39 foot-pound even of torque. And the engine case is there this time on this bike in gloss black. The rocker covers in gloss black, and the rest of the engine and the exhaust in matte black. On the back we have pretty big for the rear, 300mm single disc with another twin pot bi-brake caliper. Excellent rear brakes there, very effective. And we have those twin blacked out exhausts, of course, and the double-sided swing arm. The rear suspension is preload adjustable and has 89mm of travel. Coming up to the top of the bike, it's a 13.6 litre fuel tank, so the same sized tank as the Interceptor. So because it's the same engine, therefore we can expect around about 175 miles to a tank. When I had the Interceptor, I always used to make sure I filled up at no later than 150 mile. Of course, the Super Meteor has a 15 litre tank, so a little bit more endurance. Very familiar controls up front that we went through earlier on. Pretty good mirrors. A little bit Mickey Mouse, but excellent view to the rear. The tripper navigation system there, which operates off your cell phone navigation. And we have adjustable for span, clutch and brake levers. And other than that, pretty standard but very, very good looking bike. Seat height on these is 795mm, so pretty low. So let's have a look at me seated upon the bike. Right, so I'm 6'1" with a 32 to 33 inch inseam, 85 kilos there or thereabouts. And as you can see, with this 795mm seat height, I can easily flat foot this bike, making it very safe and assured to manoeuvre at slow speeds. You can probably see that the riding position is noticeably different to the Super Meteor, where we will be about there. So we're back here, which means that if you're not a fan of foot forward controls, then you're going to get on famously with this bike, because they're about standard. They're not tucked up at the back, which the Interceptor is a little bit. They're sort of slap bang in the middle, giving you an almost perfect 90-degree bend in the leg. So yeah, as you can see, a very comfortable and neutral riding position, I think, will be the best description that I could give on this bike. And I suppose there's only a certain extent to which you can go in describing this bike purely in terms of comparing it with the Super Meteor, but it's a difficult comparison not to make, frankly. But it is a very different bike indeed to experience once you get upon it. As I say, the actual physical presence of the bike is less, but the weight is pretty much the same. It's just, would you believe, all of 1 kilogram lighter, all of 1 kilogram lighter than the Super Meteor 650, so 240 kilogram. So yeah, long awaited bike this, Royal Enfield Shotgun 650. Because it doesn't occupy any of the more recognisable categories of motorcycle, it's very difficult to arrive at a conclusion as to who it's for or what market it's aimed at. There are those who will tell you that it's aimed at the American cruiser market, to plug a gap left by Harley Davidson, who no longer apparently make the smaller engined Harley Davidsons, but obviously it's been marketed here in the United Kingdom, so obviously Royal Enfield believe that there is a customer base for this bike. Right, apologies, but at this point the microphone became unplugged from the camera. What a muppet. But anyway, I hope that was of some interest to you. If you're interested in the new Royal Enfield Shotgun 650 and you're in this neck of the woods, get yourself up to Appleyard Motorcycles in Keighley. They've got every colourway available, and they've got this demonstrator available for you to take out as well. So it only really remains for me to thank everybody at Appleyard Motorcycles for the loan of this bike for the day. And to say that until the next time, please ride safe, be kind, and I'll catch you on the next one. I'll see thee.